Hey everyone and welcome to UK Media Warrior. Game of Thrones, Season 7, Episode 6, Beyond the Wall. There are some episodes, there are some TV shows where when I finish watching them, I am in a very 50-50 frame of mind. I love them and I hate them at the same time. Game of Thrones this season has really put me to the test with that. This episode should have been, could have been, and is in some parts possibly one of the best of the season. But in a lot of ways, it's the worst of the season. Let me just, to staple that down a bit. Normally, after I watch an episode, because obviously we're here in the UK, anyone in America, or to be honest, anywhere in the world, if they want to stay up to stupid hours in the morning, can watch this episode live. But it replays for us in the UK here on Monday nights. So I watch it on Monday nights. And I do these reviews obviously Tuesday mornings. Now, by that time, reviewers for newspapers and magazines and such have already put their opinions in print. So what I normally do is I quickly go to Wikipedia, just have a quick look around, see what people are saying about the episode, see if they're of the like mind as me. Normally, this season, the reviews have been through the roof. Everyone's loved every episode, pretty much. There's been really no negativity at all. This episode is the first one that I can recall where these reviewers for papers, news outlets all over the world, some of them are actually starting to say the logic for how time passes in this episode particularly, this is the one they're referring to, just falls apart, just doesn't make sense. This is the first time I've heard reviewers stating this. Now, people on the internet, on YouTube, comment sections, myself, have been complaining about this season's use of time travel and jump packs or teleportation or whatever you want to call it, for getting characters all over a whole continent in literally hours or days when it would have taken months. A lot of people are saying we just have to get over it. It's a TV show. Stop worrying so much. They haven't got much time left. That's not the point. These people should be able, if they're good enough writers and good enough directors, they should be able to put what they need to put on screen without half of the audience sitting back going, well, that doesn't make any sense. They should be able to do this, and they have done it for 5 seasons. But for some reason, since they've left the books behind, they seem unable to deliver on the quality of storytelling that they gave us for 5 whole years. So this episode, Beyond the Wall, like I say, there's some amazing parts. The end battle scene with the dragons and the whites and the White Walkers, the Night King, absolutely incredible. A visual spectacle for the eye. It really was. And there was no doubt about it. And I couldn't possibly knock that in any shape at all. The beginning of the episode, where you've got the Incredible Seven of Westeros, as they have been called, walking, through the north, looking for this white that they're going to bag and take back south. Amazing. The dialogue between them, the way, every now and then 2 of them would stop to talk, and everyone in the group got a chance to chat to people. Characters who have never interacted before got a chance to chat. And it was great. And I think it was odd because after the last episode ended, a lot of people were betting who's going to come back from this. They can't all come back. And people saying, like Jorah's going to bite the dust. He's definitely dead after that goodbye he did with Dany. And Tormund is definitely going to die. Beric is dead. He's out of it. Gendry's going to die. And I was like, yeah, I was sort of thinking there's no way these people, this small group, can go north. I mean, it was a stupid plan from the get-go. Jon and Tyrion's plan to, yes, let's go beyond the wall, bag a white, and bring that back to show Cersei that these things actually exist. That's a fantastic idea. No, it's a bloody stupid idea. Everyone who watched that episode, all the audience, everyone was saying it's a really, really stupid idea. But they had to do it. And this episode, one of the bad points, I'll come to it later, but it shows in this episode why that was a bad idea. But it's a bit like Tyrion's war plan at the beginning of this season, where he's laying it all out on the table, everyone's nodding, saying, yeah, that's a fantastic plan. No, that was a bloody stupid plan. It was a ridiculous plan. It was obviously not going to work, and anyone should have been able to see that. The same with this. Jon's plan to go north shouldn't have worked. It was a ridiculous plan, but it gave us some of the best spectacles that we have seen this season without fail, possibly this entire series. You know, the whole fight scene where they're on that knoll of rock in the middle of that frozen lake and they're fighting off all the wights. The dragons destroying the wights with their fire breath. Viserion being taken out by that ice spear. Absolutely incredible. And as I say, the interaction between that group of characters, Gendry, Jon, Tormund, Jorah, Beric, the Hound, Forrest, yeah, they were all there, and it was amazing. I loved that. Those guys were great together. Dany and Tyrion's scene in front of the fireplace. I liked that as well, up until the point that she again gets in his face about, oh, you're just trying to protect your brother and sister. My God, that girl can be so infuriating. Get over it, Dany, okay? You know he's not. You're just being fucking stupid, okay? And it's frustrating for the audience to see her like this, because we know Tyrion's not. He's obviously not. Nobody else around her is saying Tyrion's like this. She's the only one who's got it hitting her, lodged in her head for some reason, that Tyrion's trying to protect Jaime and Cersei. That's a stupid idea, and she should be smarter than that by now. She made him her hand. Why would she have done that if she had even the smallest thought that he would betray her? And if she now does, why is he still her hand? It just doesn't make any sense. But the beginning bit where they were sitting in front of the fire and they were chatting, that was really nice. I liked that. It was warm. It was great to see. I did enjoy that. But okay, let's look at some of the bad points. Because as I say, although there was, as I say, these really, really great points, there were some very bad points. First off, the whole point of Jon going north of the wall, as I've said, it was a terrible idea. But this showed why they did it, why the writers thought this would be a good idea. It gave us a spectacular battle. Really, there was no other reason to make Jon and this group of characters go north. It was purely written in for no other reason than to give us this battle scene between the dragons and the wights. That's all it was. Now, a lot of people figured this was going to happen. This big fight between the dragons and the White Walkers and that was going to happen later in the season. Perhaps when the wall comes down. Perhaps after that. Perhaps, you know, next season, middle of next season. It was going to be a big, stupendous thing they were going to wait and hold on to and give us, you know, when it had built up to that. But this just basically cut into line. That they wrote this thing in, this stupid idea from Jon for no other reason than to get, you know, 5 or 6 of the best characters we've got in Game of Thrones right now, head them all north of the wall, so everyone would be like, oh, what's going to happen to them? I love those characters, they can't die. And then they get into this fight, which makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, and then all but Forrest manage to escape on the back of the dragon. So, yeah, okay, we lose the dragon, we lose Viserys, or Viserion, or whatever the dragon's name's called. But the fact that pretty much all of the group survive, even Jon, who falls into a sub-zero lake, manages to survive and get back to Eastwatch, basically pulls the carpet out from under us. Any drama, any suspense, any concern we had for these characters is destroyed because they all escape. So it became a pretty much a, why did they bother sort of thing. You know, if half of these guys had died, that would have been a huge blow, and it would have made the whole point of it perhaps a little bit better. And like I said, yes, fine, we lost one of the 3 dragons, okay, and that's a big blow to Dany, and I get that. But it just didn't, it was just, again, sloppy, lazy writing. And it starts when the big polar bear, the undead polar bear, attacks. Fantastic scene. Loved it. The polar bear looked incredible. And that whole fight scene was amazing. And I love the way how the polar bear managed to take out the unimportant red shirt wildlings who had accompanied our group of main characters north of the wall to carry their supplies. It was very good of the bear to just pick out those ones that aren't important until it gets to Forrest, of course, later on. But the bear was great. But after the bear fight, they find a group of about 8 or 9 whites being led by one White Walker, just wandering around, just totally on their own, off from the main group. Why? Why would they be off from the main group? These guys don't need to send out scouts. They're not caring about casualties. They don't care if they get attacked, because they know they can kill anything that attacks them, and then any casualties they'll just raise up again. There's no point sending out scouts. So if this wasn't a scouting party, what was it off doing? Looking for supplies? These guys don't need to eat. The only reason that small group was off on its own was, again, for no other reason than to let Jon and his group attack them and get the white. Very sloppy, very smack you on the head with a baseball bat writing. It's just pure coincidence and pure forced plot armor to get these guys in this position and get exactly what they want walking by. And then to make it worse, Jon takes out the White Walker, and all of the group, all the bad guys, all the whites disintegrate other than one. Wow, what a bit of luck. What are the odds that this one that was obviously turned by another White Walker happens to be tagging along with this group? Why isn't he with his master and the White Walker who formed him? We never know, but for plot's sake, for no other reason, he happens to be tagging along with this group, and so Jon takes out the White Walker. All the bad guys disappear except for this one, which is handily bagged and tagged and carted around with them from that point on. At that point, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. It was just so... It was like the writers... It's like the writers are stumbling along. They write something, oh, that's cool, and they write it and they put it on screen, and then the next episode they're thinking, oh, shit, what do we do? We wrote that last episode, it looked cool last episode, but now we've got to figure out how it makes sense in this episode. Quick, do that. So they do that, and then the next episode they're like, oh, shit, now what do we do? And it's like they're constantly playing catch-up with themselves because they keep writing in these things which sound really cool. And then they're like, well, how do I actually get that payout? How do I make the payout now? Why did I write that? That was really stupid. So they wrote that Jon was going to go north of the wall and then capture this white. And then they're probably sitting around thinking, well, how the hell do we do that without all these guys dying? There's no way we can do it. Or we'll just have this small splinter group of whites just off to one side. So Jon and gang can take it. And nobody's going to worry about it. That'll work. Oh, well, damn, we can't do that because if he kills the White Walker, they're all going to disintegrate. We're going to introduce that in this episode. It's never been shown before. It never showed up in Hardhome when Jon defeated that White Walker and killed him. We didn't see any of the whites suddenly disintegrating. This is the first time we know that if you kill a White Walker, any whites that he raised up himself will die with him. So that's great. I mean, that's fine. I love that point. But the point is, they introduce it, but then they introduce some people, well, they can't all die, because if all the whites die, then how does Jon get his one to get back to the south? So they had to screw with the plot and screw with the writing to make it possible for Jon to get what he wants. And then for him, the whole group to manage to rush out into this lake, they send Gendry off. Now, at this point, it looks like they've been travelling a couple of days at least, north of the wall. At least. So, even if they'd travelled just one day, okay, let's just say they travelled for one day. Okay, so they've walked all this way through all this snow and whatever. They fight this. Gendry gets sent back to Eastwatch to send a raven to Daenerys. Jon and his group manage to get across this lake and defend this small little rock in the middle of this lake while all the whites move in. The ice disintegrates under them and loads of them fall into the frozen water, and then the others just stand back and wait for the ice to freeze up again. Well, okay, first of all, the whites that fell into the water should still be alive. That wouldn't kill them. They are already dead. Sub-zero temperatures aren't going to do them any harm. So they're still down there somewhere. Secondly, the Night King has shown that he can cause blizzards and lower temperatures to the point that frost and ice form on wood and stuff around him. If that's the case, why is he sitting on his horse watching all this and not just freezing the ice and letting his guys go and get Jon and his group? Or was he not there? I mean, he would have surely have noticed when one of his White Walkers gets killed. That should have been enough to pull him along. I mean, the White was screeching, and that screeching brought the rest of the army to them. That was the whole point, that Jon and his group had to run for it and have to get across this lake. So the Night King should have been right there, and we know from past it showing on screen that his powers are that he can freeze things. So he should have instantly been able to freeze that lake and get his Whites across to attack Jon and his group. But that didn't happen. So they are now stuck on this little rock in this frozen lake. Gendry's off. Gendry's running. Okay, so let's say they've travelled a whole day on foot from Eastwatch. Gendry now has to run that distance back to Eastwatch through snow and ice and desolation in sub-zero temperatures. I'm sorry, he just wouldn't be able to do it. This guy has never been, as they state in this episode, he's never seen snow before. He's never been this far north before. He's never felt these temperatures before. I don't care how strong the guy is, he wouldn't be able to cope with that sort of degree of temperature change and run that distance. It's just impossible. But he manages to get there and falls at the gate of Eastwatch. The Raven gets sent to Dany. Dany gets on her dragons and brings all three north to save Jon. How long would that have taken? If these guys took a whole day to walk, I don't know, however far they walk north of the wall, Gendry's now got to run it. Now, he wouldn't be able to be running constantly. He just wouldn't be able to do that. Even though we see him on screen running constantly. You know, he's not Aragorn or Legolas or Gimli out of Lord of the Rings. He's Gendry. You know, he's a kid. He's, well, a young man. You know, he's a human. There's nothing special about him. So as I said, he wouldn't be able to run all the way. He's going to have to take breaks. He's got to get his breath back. He's got to recover. So let's say it takes him, I don't know, 12 hours. Let's say he can do it in 12 hours. I doubt he would be able to, but let's say he can. So it takes him 12 hours to get back to the wall. Fine. They then have to write the message, put it on a Raven. The Raven then flies to Dragonstone. That's going to take hours. That's quite a distance from Eastwatch to Dragonstone. So the Raven gets there. Dany gets on her winter clothing, gets on the dragons, and flies north. So it's going to take easily at least another day for Dany to actually be in position. So that means that Jon and his group have stayed there on that rock for 24 hours. The Night King's arrived. He hasn't frozen the lake. The lake hasn't frozen on its own, even though in those sort of sub-zero temperatures, you know, it probably would have by then, after a full day. So, you see, this is where the time-travelling elements come in, and this is where it makes some of the audience a little bit upset that they're doing this, that it doesn't... You know, even, I read a statement by the guy who directed it, Alan Taylor, and he was saying, well, yeah, we fudged with the timeline a little bit, but, you know, in some of these things, you have to do that to make these stories work. No, if you're any good at telling stories, writing and directing these things, you don't have to fudge the storyline. I don't care how few characters you've got. Films and other TV shows have done this for years without a problem. Why is this an issue for you guys? Okay, so that's... Oh, one other thing. Where did the Whites get those huge chains to drag Viserion out of the ice? They just had them hanging around. I mean, this army of the dead has been walking south for the last 4 years, 5 years. They must really like their tea breaks, because the rest of the show, we've had cast members, wildlings, Jon, Rangers, going north, coming back, going north, coming back, you know, for years. But this army of the dead still hasn't got to the wall after 4 years of walking. So how many times do they stop and have a break? It's you know, nah. But now they're carrying around these huge chains that look like the sort of thing you would use to pull ships around. You know, tugs would use to pull large ships around. I'm pretty sure they just weren't in a backpack somewhere, and they just carried them in case they needed to drag a dragon out or something. So, yeah, okay, it looked great, but you can't just put great visuals on screen without backing it up with solid story writing. That doesn't make sense, and it just looks stupid and takes us out of the story, out of what we're trying to immerse ourselves in on the screen. Let's go to Winterfell. We've got Sansa and Arya having a bit of an argument there, twice. Now this is exactly what Littlefinger wanted. This is why he planted that scroll for Arya to find. He wanted her and Sansa to fall apart, to have this wedge shoved between them so they wouldn't be a combined force to fight him. Now a lot of people are saying that they think Sansa and Arya are together in this, that they are playing Littlefinger, that they will come out on top. Well, okay, but why would they be having these arguments in private then? If that was it, if this is all a big scheme, a scam to make Littlefinger think he's getting his way, and in actual fact they're just putting all these arguments on for show, why have them in private where no one else can see them? Why have these big rows and Arya threatening Sansa with a knife at one point when Littlefinger can't see any of this? That doesn't make any sense. He won't know this is happening, so he won't know his plan is succeeding. So I don't buy that. I think Sansa is just feeling, she's sinking back into the character she used to be in the first 2 or 3 seasons. She feels like she's threatened, she feels weak, she feels like things aren't going her way, and when things don't go Sansa's way, she gets into the little bitch mode that she was in the first few seasons, where she starts whining and complaining. People are saying, oh, Sansa's really grown, she's this strong lady now, she knows how to play the game. No, I don't think she really does. She hasn't had the amount of time. People like Littlefinger and Cersei have been playing the Game of Thrones since they were kids. Sansa has only been doing it for 5 or 6 years. I'm pretty sure Littlefinger's got a little bit more of a good idea of how to do this than she does. So to say, oh yeah, she's learnt from Littlefinger, she's learnt from Cersei, she knows how to beat these guys, I'm not entirely sure that's the case. But that knife thing with Arya is interesting, because Arya was literally threatening Sansa up until that point. There was no other way of reading what she was saying. But then to flip the knife and hand it to Sansa, in my mind, she was saying, all I need to do is kill you and take your face. And I can do it. You saw me training with Brienne. I can kill you easily in this room. Nobody's here. I take your face. I become you. Everything's good for me. But then instead of doing that, she flips the knife around, hands it to Sansa, and walks out. Now, as I say, to me, that was her saying, I could do this. I can easily do this. I can do this. But I'm not going to. I've got your back, and here's my knife. Now, I am disarming myself. I am giving you my knife. I'm with you on this. But, you've got to deliver. You've got to step up. Now, that's how I read it. It could also have been that Arya just knew that there's nothing Sansa could do to her, so why not give her the knife? It's not like Sansa was going to stab her or anything, or if she tried, Arya could easily defeat her. But the problem now is, as Sansa said, all the armed men, all the soldiers in Winterfell are loyal to Sansa. They're not loyal to Arya. So if Arya does anything, she's going to be taken out. So I don't know what's going to happen. Does this mean she leaves Winterfell because it's become a little bit too dangerous for her? Or will she hang around in the hopes that Jon reappears? I mean, where's Jon going? He's on a boat going somewhere. We're assuming he's going back to Dragonstone. He's bent the knee to Dany now. He's called her his queen. So now he has to go back to Winterfell at some point and try and explain to all the lords, hey, sorry guys, I know you voted me in as your king, but, sorry, I bent the knee to this woman who's just arrived from Essos. So, yeah, we're now her vassals. Okay, she's in charge. That's probably going to piss them all off. And as Arya says to Sansa in this episode, you want the Lords of the North to be with you, behind you. Some of them already back you. And if Jon comes back and says, well, no, sorry, I bent the knee, they'll probably kick him out or something and put Sansa in charge. what happens then? Jon keeps making these crosses for his own back, these rods for his own back. He just can't help himself. It's like he keeps falling into one honourable mistake after another. It's just one after another. He should have held his ground. Dany now knows these White Walkers exist. She knows the Army of the Dead is coming. She lost a dragon to them. She now has an emotional stake in defeating them. He didn't have to bend the knee at that point. You know, he had her where he wanted her, and he gave in. So, I don't know. Obviously, it's the last episode next week, and then we've got to wait till 2019 for the final season of Game of Thrones. Hopefully, they will have learned from their mistakes in this season, and the last season will be a hell of a lot better writing style, if nothing else. Okay, that's about it. I think I've covered just about everything I liked and disliked in this episode. If you like this review, please subscribe to my YouTube page or share this on Facebook. But for my rating on this one, like I said at the beginning, it was a very 50-50 episode for me. I'm going to give this one 8 out of 10 dragons. 8 out of 10 dragons. And that is purely, really, for the visual explosion of excellence in that battle at the end with the dragons taking out the White Walker, the Whites, and that polar bear, that under polar bear fight scene, and the talking between the gang heading north from the wall. That 8 is purely my representation, my admiration for them putting that in, because that was very good. It was incredible, and I loved that. So even though there was a lot of bad points, and they have knocked this rating down to an 8, the good points still managed to keep it at a respectable score. See you guys next week. Thank you for watching. Until then, take care. Bye for now.